In El Salvador, one of the most brutal and violent days in 10 years of war. While rebels and government troops continued fighting for control of the capital city of San Salvador, a group of armed men entered a university there and brutally murdered 8 people.
The government immediately accused leftist rebels of being the murderers, but strong circumstantial evidence suggests they were from El Salvador's extreme right wing. Thousands of people fled the area after the army warned it would attack. Air Force gunships poured down more machine gun fire.
All our homes are completely destroyed.
But with the armed forces counterattacking and inflicting heavy civilian casualties, there may be no winners in the battle for public support. Peter Collins, ABC News, El Salvador.
Our system as well. The United States, I think, no matter how unpleasant the circumstances of the conflict, should be in there supporting those people. We're supporting a national group, not injecting ourselves into El Salvador.
American aid has undoubtedly bolstered the government forces in the field, but inevitably comparisons with Vietnam are being made, and sometimes seemingly confirmed in the Bush war outside the capital. 30 miles north of San Salvador, the commander of a government armored unit calls in airstrikes to
The world that I was born into was self-destroying. At moments it felt like there was no escape. My family and I got an opportunity to leave the capital during the worst of it. Not before sleeping in the dark to the sound of gunfire. I was a little kid when I first learned to live one day at a time. A moment had come, and it was time to make a decision and head to a new world. I would end up in an unexpected place. A small American town in the middle of North Carolina. This place would change my life. It's where I learned of my potential and began to push myself to see how far I could go. The drive to push myself would lead me on a long journey. It would eventually take me to Charlotte, a place I now call home, and occasionally have fun flying between the buildings. One decision long ago by my parents made me who I am today. I still always wonder what it would be like to return to San Salvador. I thought it was only right to take this trip with my parents. After 25 years, it would only take 2 hours and 19 minutes to be back to San Salvador. As we landed, I could see the mountains and volcanoes that make up this part of the world. I could also see solar panels and a cityscape I could hardly recognize. The sun was beginning to set, making every view in El Salvador look like a postcard. Lucky for me, my family was ready to show us around. Our first stop will be at the Salvador del Mundo Plaza, famous for the Jesus statue on top of a globe. Christmas is celebrated all of December, so people are spending time out in the city during their break from work. Just a few blocks away in another plaza, there was more food, music, and talented street performers. Just to our side is the National Palace, and today we will be taking the last tour of the night. The original building was built in 1866. After a fire in 1889, it was rebuilt and opened again in 1911. Today, it's mostly used for ceremonies and a reminder of El Salvador's history. My memories of El Salvador are mostly of the war. It was great to hear of the history before the war, but even better to hear how El Salvador changed after. A new president and government took office in June 2019. It was the first time a third party defeated the two major parties. The new president came with a promise of change and optimism. It was something you could feel walking around the capital city. I've always heard it's better to be a traveler than to be a tourist. And there's no better way to dive into a culture than to visit the local market. Marriott Market, like others around the world, are full of everything. It's where people do their grocery shopping, or meet up with friends and get a few cold drinks. Today we're on the search for a good restaurant for us to try some local dishes. Restaurants here, thanks to the market, never run out of things to cook. You will also find musicians always ready to play local classics. After a little searching, my aunt tells us we have found our destination.
Ya está ahí lo que es la sopa de mondongoles. Las chicharroncitas que llaman.
Dice, ¿dónde estamos ahorita?
Estamos aquí en Costelito Elba, en el mercadito de Merlión, antiguo Cuscatlán. Desde la edad de 12 años trabajo en esto yo. ¿Ves bien? Aquí pues estamos ahorita igual, lavando y limpiando ahí ya el camarón, ya para cocerlo. Quiero una, nuestras tortillitas riquísimas, una tortilla.
Of course, we had to try a signature seafood cocktail, and my aunt was ready to show us how it's done. After a few micheladas and a plate of local seafood dishes, we had accomplished our mission of a good time. It's all about family in El Salvador, and you do your best to try and see everyone you can. We made a stop for a coffee and for my mom to catch up with one of my aunts. Distance and time isn't enough to keep friends or family apart. After a few pictures, it was time to get back on the road. We had one more stop before getting ready for a big trip in the morning. The altitude made nights a bit chilly in San Salvador. A local beverage named atol de elote, which is corn-based, warm, and sweet, is the perfect way to end the night. There's also lots of street food in case you get hungry. For now, it was time for bed. We woke up extra early since we got a tour van to take us up to El Cerro Verde National Park. This is a place I haven't been to since I was 5 years old. To start the morning, we would eat El Salvador's national dish, pupusas. It's thick masa stuffed with cheese and beans and sometimes meat. This dish has been around for over 2,000 years. Today, we would eat it surrounded by active volcanoes.
Buenos días. Vamos a comenzar con las indicaciones.
After a few words from our guide, it was time to start the hike. This hike is roughly a 4-hour trip. The altitude is 7,812 feet, so it's easy to feel a little out of breath or altitude sickness if you're not used to it. If you decide to do this, keep in mind it's an active volcano, and the last time it erupted was 2005.
Que es una gran aventura.
Sí.
que vale la pena, la caminada, la subida.
We made it to the volcano with my family right now. So you can see we've all made it here. Díganle hola.
Hola, hola, hello. Hello.
This is my uncle. We made it nice and safe, and this is amazing. Check out this view.
Once we got to the top, it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. I still feel a connection to these volcanoes. I was born not far from here. This is something I plan to do again in the future. On our last day, my only request was to see the Pacific Ocean. My family thought it would be a good idea to spend it at Puerto de la Libertad. We got to walk through one of the largest fish markets I have ever seen. Along the way, you can pick up a cold beer and spend time next to the waves. After a little exploring, we found a place to wind down, get a bite to eat, and spend our last afternoon together. Every trip has a last sunset, and today we couldn't have asked for a better one.
So this is where the trip comes to an end. El Salvador has been amazing. It's been awesome, and I can't wait to come back. See you next time.
On this trip, I got a chance to meet my family again, and some for the first time. I also discovered where I was born. A land surrounded by Mayan pyramids, volcanoes, and tropical forest. This is where my story began, around a great family, full of strength and determination. I am proud of how far El Salvador has come. The younger generation is changing it. The future is unwritten, and the past is where it should be, behind us. I will see you again. Until next time.